The Gaza ceasefire and detainee exchange deal will take effect tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Gaza local time. Egypt announces the success of its efforts to reach a ceasefire agreement in Gaza. And UN Secretary General expresses full support for Lebanon's political progress, including the election of a new president and prime minister. It's 8 p.m. Cairo local time, and you're watching Qnews. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. The Gaza ceasefire and detainee exchange deal will take effect on Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Gaza local time. This came after Egypt, Qatar, and the United States mediated the agreement, which includes a 42-day truce, troop withdrawals from populated areas, aid delivery, and detainee exchanges. Hamas will release 33 Israeli detainees, while Israel will free 737 Palestinian detainees. Talks for a permanent ceasefire and further exchanges will resume during this period. Egypt has announced the success of its efforts since the beginning of the crisis in the Gaza Strip, in cooperation with its regional and international partners, to reach a ceasefire agreement. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has expressed its gratitude to Qatar for its ongoing and productive cooperation in facilitating the successful achievement of a ceasefire agreement. The ministry also confirmed the mediator's commitment to ensuring the agreement's implementation in 3 phases within the agreed-upon timelines. It added that the ceasefire will come into effect tomorrow, 8:30 a.m., and under the first phase, Hamas will release 33 Israeli detainees in exchange for Israel freeing over 1,890 Palestinian prisoners. In a press conference with his Nigerian counterpart, Yusuf Tugar, Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdel-Ati has announced ongoing efforts to deliver aid to Gaza through the Rafah crossing, confirming that 600 trucks will enter daily. Abdel-Ati highlighted Egypt's relentless efforts to secure the Gaza ceasefire and reaffirmed the country's ongoing support for Palestinians. He underscored the importance of a 2-state solution as a means to prevent future violence, emphasizing Egypt's commitment to ensuring the successful implementation of the truce. Egypt has opened registration for doctors wishing to volunteer to treat those wounded and injured by the Israeli aggression in the Gaza Strip. The head of the Egyptian Doctors Syndicate, Osama Abdelhai, stated that this initiative is part of an effort to compile a list of required medical specialties. He explained that the syndicate is working in coordination with the Egyptian Red Crescent and the government to mobilize the necessary medical teams for Gaza's health sector. Abdelhai noted that over 2,000 doctors are ready to volunteer and enter Gaza to treat the wounded. The European Commission has stated that its mission to oversee the Rafah border crossing will send a team to Cairo next week to support the implementation of the recently agreed ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The European Union announced that it's reviewing plans to redeploy its monitoring mission at the Rafah border crossing. The draft ceasefire agreement includes provisions for the daily entry of hundreds of aid trucks into Gaza. Earlier, the European Union pledged €120 million in humanitarian aid to address Gaza's urgent needs. And for more analysis, we now move to Mona in our newsroom.
Thank you so much, Salma. And for further analysis on the current situation in Gaza, a night before the ceasefire agreement implementation, we're joined from Ramallah by political writer Jamal Saqut. Good evening to you, sir, and welcome to Qnews. Now, with the ceasefire and detainee exchange agreement going into effect in less than 24 hours, what should we be expecting to happen at those upcoming hours?
See, I think the most important that the genocide, it will not be stopped completely, at least it will be minimized to the minimum. Palestinians in Gaza were suffered for the last 15 months alone, a complete organized genocide designed by Netanyahu government. So this is the first and top priority for the Gazians and all the Palestinians, and I think for all the people of all the world who were demonstrated against that genocide, that killing of civilians, killing of children, killing of women will be stopped. This is the first point. Secondly, I hope that the world will wake up about what was the meaning of genocide, when Israel should be imposed to allow journalists to enter to Gaza and the stories of those victims to be spread among all the world. This is my personal expectation as the first point. I promise myself that tomorrow at 8:30, I will pray in my own way that this genocide against Palestinians will be the last one, and the world, including the Israeli people, will realize that there is no solution via genocide against the Palestinians.
All prayers.
Palestinians will continue to stay here and continue to build their future here in Gaza, as well as the West Bank, and Israel should teach another channel to live in a real coexistence with Palestinians and with its neighbors, Egypt, Jordan, and other countries.
All prayers. Now, from your point of view, what steps will be taken to guarantee the consistent delivery of humanitarian aid to the Gaza under the agreement and at this very particular and dire situation in Gaza?
Yeah, this is another issue which is called a crime of war. When Israel used preventing food and medication, as well water and electricity, and sometimes oxygen for infants in the hospital as a tool against the civilians, I think that there is a top priority for all the crossing points to be open. Not only Rafah, which is where was closed from last May, when Hamas accepted the deal presented by Pence and the Americans, and Netanyahu to stop that track to be accepted by all the stakeholders, including Egypt and Qatar and the United States, he invaded Rafah and Philadelphia sector to prevent that.
Right. Okay. Now, from your point of view, what should be the consistent measures taken in order to be able to fulfill that and to make or facilitate the entry of the aid?
Yeah, I think that there should not be limitation for what Gazians need. Medications, doctors, and here really I'm appreciating that the Trade Union of Doctors of Egypt declared today that 2,000 of Egyptian doctors are ready to enter to Gaza to be a part of surviving the Palestinians who are injured and were not allowed to join any hospital outside of Gaza. I'm sorry for that. There wasn't hospitals in Gaza. They cannot be able to join a suitable hospital outside, as the Israelis destroyed all the hospital and medical centers in the Gaza. So the top priority that Gazans is in need, that medical staff and medicine should be allowed to enter to Gaza to compensate what Israel are committed of crimes of killing hundreds of Palestinian doctors and nurses and damaging hundreds of Palestinian ambulances. Of course.
So we're speaking here about the ability of the international community to mount its pressures on Israel to carry out with such measures. Now, how can, from a broader aspect, how can the ceasefire agreement succeed, or how will its success contribute to the impacting the broader Middle East stability?
See, first of all, there is agreement. This is agreement of ceasefire, which contains 3 stages. But I hope that Israel, which was imposed by Trump, after the deep hesitation of Biden administration of imposing Israel to accept the same agreement last May, July, and either the declaration of Biden himself. He declared an initiative, and Hamas and the resistance groups accepted that, including Egypt and Qatar and all the Arab countries. But Netanyahu refused that, and as I said, he invaded Rafah to prevent not only the initiative to be succeeded, but to prevent any kind of humanitarian and medical aid to enter. And he used the need of medical and humanitarian aid as a tool, as a kind of war instrument against the Palestinians. So what I'm expecting, that this should be stopped. I hope that Israel will respect, and Netanyahu will not jump to the second stage to only to search for a kind of violation to try to continue the war. This is the responsibility of the stakeholders, mediators, and the United States, who are putting their signature as a guaranteed country for the full implementation of the ceasefire agreement.
Now, from your point of view here, considering Israel's track record of not fulfilling commitments, can this agreement withstand and remain sustainable?
Yes, I think yes, unless Netanyahu will try, as always, not only Netanyahu, all the Israeli government, in all their history, they were not respecting any kind of agreements. And I think that the war itself against Gaza was a result that Israel is not implementing and not respecting what was called Oslo Agreement, which was entitled to end the occupation, entitled to allow Palestinians to exercise their right in self-determination. Mm-hmm. So I'm expecting that Netanyahu will try to create a violation and will put all the mediators, stakeholders in trouble. I am hoping that he will not.
No, we're not hoping for that. From your point of view, sir, what role will the international organization play in monitoring the construction efforts?
See, I think, yes, we are welcoming all the assistance of all the world, either international organizations, countries, Arab countries, European countries, either United States to be a facilitator for that. But I think that the first step which should be taken is a Palestinian step. Palestinians need to unify their efforts. We have the Beijing agreement, which is signed by all the Palestinian factions to create an independent, non-factional government accepted by all the factions to take the responsibility. It was entitled to be a facilitator or at least a supporter for the ceasefire to be concluded either in May or June or July. But it's late, but it's more good than never. Now we need a Palestinian national unity government, independent one, accepted by all the factions, but to be allowed to work independently to cooperate with the Arab countries, with the international community, to first to facilitate as a Palestinian agreed address, to facilitate the passage of humanitarian and medical aid, to help Palestinians to have a kind of homes, either to be
indeed, Mr. Gamal.
To the construction, and I hope that our brothers, the Egyptian and the Qataris, will be facilitator as they succeeded to achieve this agreement between Hamas and Israel. We are in top priority to achieve more important agreement between the PA and Hamas and other factions to create this kind of agreement yesterday before tomorrow, today before tomorrow.
Yes, indeed, Mr. Gamal. Unity among the Palestinian factions is very important for alleviating the suffering of all Palestinians and be able to rebuild Palestinian territories again. Mr. Zakout, we thank you so much, sir, for being with us and for your input and insights here. And now back to you, Salma.
Thank you so much, Mona, for conducting this in-depth analysis. Israeli military vehicles have begun withdrawing from Jabalia in northern Gaza in preparation for the ceasefire agreement. Despite the withdrawal, Israeli airstrikes continue across Gaza, including in Gaza cities El Nasr and El Karama neighborhoods, although no injuries have been reported. In northern Gaza, Israeli drones maintain control, firing intermittently at movement, while Israeli occupation forces have set fire to homes and ongoing bombing continues in central Gaza's El Nusayrat camp. Israel's occupation military has continued its bombardment of the Gaza Strip a day before a ceasefire deal with Hamas was scheduled to take effect. Israeli warplanes have maintained heavy attacks since the deal was agreed, continuing to devastate the territory. Israeli tanks shelled the Zaytun neighborhood of Gaza City, and airstrikes targeted central and southern Gaza, according to residents. Medics in Gaza reported that 5 people were killed in an airstrike that struck a tent in the Mawasi area west of Qnews. Smoke was visible rising from northern Gaza as transport trucks moved tanks in southern Israel. The World Health Organization plans to deploy prefabricated hospitals to Gaza within 2 months of the ceasefire, estimating that the healthcare sector will need $10 billion for recovery. The World Health Organization stated that starting immediately, displaced Palestinians can return to northern Gaza and free movements will resume across the Strip. Infrastructure rehabilitation, including electricity, water, sanitation, and roads, will begin, alongside the import of civil defense equipment and debris removal tools as part of the recovery effort. Israeli media has reported that the majority of Israelis support the detainee swap deal and ceasefire with Hamas. 73% of Israelis back the detainee exchange deal, with 45% strongly supporting and 28% somewhat supporting it. Israeli media reported that only 19% oppose the deal, while 8% remain undecided. Support is stronger among opposition party supporters at 91% compared to 52% among coalition party backers. The survey conducted from January 5th to 16th included 509 adult participants. The Egyptian Ministers of Health and Solidarity have arrived at the Rafah crossing as part of Egypt's intensive efforts to ensure the final preparations for the entry of aid into the Gaza Strip are completed. Earlier, a high-level Egyptian source confirmed to Qnews that the Cairo meeting on implementing the ceasefire agreement in the Gaza Strip had concluded in a positive atmosphere. The source also confirmed that all necessary arrangements had been agreed upon, including the establishment of a joint operations room in Cairo to oversee the implementation of the procedures. And now we move on to the latest developments in Lebanon.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed full support for Lebanon's political progress, including the election of a new president and prime minister. Meeting with Lebanon's Prime Minister Nawaf Salem has praised the ceasefire, Israeli withdrawal, and expanded Lebanese army deployment as opportunities for transformation. Guterres urged international backing for Lebanon's resurgence as a regional hub. He confirmed no increase in UNIFIL personnel, but enhanced resources, and called for strict adherence to the ceasefire and respect for Lebanon's sovereignty.
It is now essential to see the withdrawal of the Israel Defense Forces.
Moving on to Beirut, Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has stated that ongoing Israeli violations and the destruction of border villages in southern Lebanon completely contradict the terms of the ceasefire agreement. During a meeting with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Aoun emphasized Lebanon's commitment to the withdrawal of Israeli occupation forces from the south by the deadline specified in the ceasefire agreement. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed full support for Lebanon, emphasizing readiness to mobilize international support for the country's recovery. During his meeting with President Joseph Aoun, Guterres expressed solidarity with the Lebanese people and their government, emphasizing the potential for strengthening Lebanese institutions and ensuring full protection for citizens once Israeli forces withdraw. He also praised Lebanon's resilience, noting that reconstruction would begin as soon as the conflict ends.
Our total support and our will.
Moving on to Syria, the foreign minister has expressed anticipation for the country's return to the Arab League as the new leadership seeks to reassert its position in the regional political landscape. Asad Hassan al-Shibani made his remarks during a joint press conference in Damascus with Arab League Assistant Secretary General Hossein Zaki, who announced that the Arab League is collaborating with member states to restore Syria's participation. This brings us to the end of our news bulletin. Here's what we've been covering. The Gaza ceasefire and detainee exchange deal will take effect tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Gaza local time. Egypt announces the success of its efforts to reach a ceasefire agreement in Gaza. And UN Secretary General expresses full support for Lebanon's political progress, including the election of a new president and prime minister.
Commitment to Resolution 1701.
This concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.